encourage people, if they don't know how to market themselves, to try to build a social media presence, because that's kind of the only thing to really do nowadays. And it can be scary and you can feel like that a lot. But try your hand at emerging platforms. Instagram Reels is really popular. TikTok, obviously. Um, uh, Spend some time on these apps. It's very easy. They're addicting. And see what videos do well, and then try to use those trends for yourself, for your organization, to market yourself and get your message out. And you never know whose feed that will come across. It could be a reporter, or it could be someone who does cover your community. And it's hard for a newspaper or a media organization to ignore something that's gaining a lot of traction through word of mouth. And a good way to create word of mouth is through social media. We also have an online events calendar, and I put dreaded in there, submit events to dreaded online calendars, because a lot of PR professionals who I work with one called it the place that events, or that event listings go to die, because you feel like you kind of just put it out into the ether, nothing happens. But I promise, like I always tell artists and arts organizations to submit to our online calendar. The Coloradoan has one, North 40, I believe, has one, Scene Magazine has one, and it's really the only like guaranteed way to get some coverage for your event nowadays, to get some eyeballs on your event online. And when I was covering arts and entertainment, I would look through our events calendar a lot and use that to help populate some events roundups that I would do. So I promise it's worth it. And it's generally not a huge lift. They're pretty user-friendly. And so I would always recommend submitting an event to those if you can. So if you are hoping for some traditional media coverage from print publications, radio stations or TV stations, I listed out some steps that you could try to take. So first, I would list out all of the publications that you think you have a shot at getting coverage in. And don't forget the little ones. I feel like the Rocky Mountain Collegian, the student media at CSU gets slept on a lot, but there's a lot of great student journalists there who are looking to cover cool things happening in the community, and especially if there is a tie to the university or an event that you're hosting that might appeal to students. That's a great resource. And then from there, I would edit the list. I would identify the publications that you think you have the best shot at getting coverage from. So maybe it's a really specialized publication that might be more likely to cover your kind of specialized event. Maybe it's a hyperlocal publication like the Coloradoan. If you're a Fort Collins-based organization, you're not going to want to send a press release to the Pueblo chieftain. You could always cast a wide net, but what I would encourage you to do is to identify the publications that you think you have the best shot at getting coverage from, and then really work hard on your pitch to them and make it more personalized and less kind of one size fits all, because that will up your chance of, like I said, your press release not falling to the bottom of someone's inbox and being forgotten. So one way to do that, to differentiate your pitch from others, the biggest piece of advice I give people is read the publications that you're pitching to and familiarize yourself with what they cover. And I can't tell you how many times I get a press release for like Boise music festivals and stuff, and I'm like, oh, we're not in Idaho. So really try to send, a targeted email to the reporter on that staff, or if it's a small staff, to the publisher, and make it known that you're local, that you follow their publication, that you know what they report on, and why you think that your event or your organization is a good fit for their publication. Another good rule of thumb is asking them in that email, what is the best way for me to get information to you? Do you prefer an EPK, an electronic press kit, which we'll get into? Do you want a more traditional press release? Do you just want a quick email? And how can I get photos to you? The Coloradoan, for example, has a system now where if we take submitted photos, they have to be submitted through a form that gives us permission to use them. So there's that extra step. So attaching a photo to a press release, we can't use that photo unless it goes through this certain form. So that's just a question that you'd get answered if you asked, what can I do to share my event? What do you need from me to make it easier for you to cover this? So like I said, I'm not on the arts and entertainment beat anymore, but I just rounded up some things that some examples of stories that would rise to the top when I was covering arts and entertainment in Fort Collins. As you can see, the photo in the top right, that was from Debut Children's Theater's radio theater production of It's a Wonderful Life. It was recorded during COVID, and it was, they had like separators and social distancing on stage, and it was this really unique way to continue performing during COVID. And because it was so unique, it warranted coverage. I mean, we sent our photographer there, which we like never, we have one photographer, so if he's at your event, it's a big deal. And then obviously big milestones. So the Fort Collins Symphony turned 100 years old a few years ago. So we did a feature on them. So if you have an anniversary coming up, that's a really good time to pitch a story to a local media organization. And then one kind of story that I did a lot of because it was easy and it got a lot of readership. A lot of readers were interested in how am I going to spend my weekend? What can I do this weekend? So I did a lot of events, roundups that were themed. So around holidays, around certain times of the year, like summer music roundups, 10 things to do around the holidays in Fort Collins, what to do around Valentine's Day. So if you have any shows, any exhibitions, any events that you think would fit into one of those, I would tailor your pitch to say, if you have any of these roundups planned in the near future, please consider my event. So how to get information to these media organizations. Peggy mentioned electronic press kits. How many musicians are there in this room? None. Okay. I was going to say that EPKs are, I think, most popular among bands and musicians. And as a publication that doesn't do a lot of music coverage, I don't see a lot of EPKs. But basically, an EPK is, it contains an artist bio, link to music, photos, videos, contact information, and it's kind of, as you can see, it's like designed to all be in one kind of concise spot. And it's meant to be easily distributed to very wide audiences. In the middle there's kind of a more traditional press release. And that's probably the best way to reach out to a publication like the Coloradoan or other local publications in Fort Collins. I regularly have folks send me an email asking for coverage, and instead of listing everything like in a news release, they also will share out an event listing that they put together. So there's kind of three ways I would say to get information on your event or your organization to reporters like myself, the EPK, the emailed press release, and getting on the events calendar and then sending that link to the reporter and saying, if you need any more information, here's just a quick hit. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or give your contact information.
if we give it to you ready and it's easy and it's not big, long paragraphs that you have to read through.
That is the best. So I would say, if you see in the middle there, that press release is a really good format where it's the who, what, where, when, time, just the quick hit information. And then a brief description at the bottom. You can always attach like a traditional press release that's kind of written out, but I would say the less clicking that that a journalist has to do to get to the information that you want them to get, the better. So if you can include everything in the body of the email, that's that would be the best. And then again, if you're pitching to a hyper local publication like the Coloradoan or like North 40 or like Scene, I would, again, just hit that local element really hard. Let them know who you are. You live in Fort Collins, how long you've been here, and just hit that local element hard because it differentiates you, again, from all the other press releases that are coming through from people across the state and sometimes across the country. So some final tips here. Plan ahead. So I mentioned try to include photos. That's a really great way to make things easier on reporters. And like I said, ask them if, you know, you could say, I've attached a photo for your use. Here's a credit line. So they don't have to come back and ask you, who should I credit for this photo? And then you can also ask, is this the right way to get that information to you? If not, let me know. And then, second here, I'm all turned around in my notes. So for event coverage specifically, when I was covering events for the Coloradoan, my event coverage was almost exclusively preview coverage. So unless there was something that was really newsy, like covering a rally or a protest, it was almost always a story about an event that was going to happen, giving people the information of where it's going to be, what it is, things like that. So for that reason, it's really good to get that information to publications as early as you can. If you email them 2 days in advance, there's no chance, I would say, for any coverage, especially because print deadlines now have changed so much that sometimes you need to get a story to your editors a week in advance. For those holiday roundups that I mentioned, I would even go sooner, and I would go like about a month ahead of the holiday season, just to give yourself the best shot. Be prepared with photos. I kind of flipped that one a little bit. And be prepared, send photos along, submitted art along, and then try to answer all the questions you think you would have in your initial email. But also be prepared and be really responsive if there are follow-up questions, and try not to let too much time elapse between a reporter or a publisher emailing you back with follow-up questions and you responding. And then don't get discouraged. I know I've told so many organizations no to coverage just because of the limitations that the Coloradoan has. But that shouldn't be what I've said no a lot, but there's always that chance that that your event is gonna break through. And so I would just say keep trying. And as I said before, keep reading stories in the publications that you're pitching, because say a new reporter starts and they have a new subject area that might be of interest to you, or that might fit into what you're trying to get coverage for. You could reach out to them directly and say, welcome to your new job. I saw that you've been reporting on this. That fits into something I've been doing in the community. Can we set up a time to chat? So always just kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's being covered in the community, because you never know what coverage opportunities might arise because of that. All right, I feel like I just blacked out. I'm like, the last 15 minutes are gone. I'm not used to being in front of people. I'm used to being behind my computer a lot. So I think we have time for questions if there's anything I didn't answer. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You might need to create an account. So if you go to the Coloradoans website and you go to, there's like the top, um, uh, the top line of tags, and then there's like, you click the arrow down for more, and then there should be like things to do, and then under that calendar. And then when you get there, there's like a little orange button that says add your own event. And then I would follow the prompts there. And the calendar is great because you can also upload your own photos there too. So when it's presented on its website, it looks, I think, very professional, and uh, uh, I think it's an appealing way to present events to folks.
So make sure to upload it to the visit.
Yeah.
Again, you never know who's looking out.
Yeah.
What do you think about the services that allow you to post on like event calendars? Like I use those a couple years ago. You can like do multiple calendars and all the.
Oh, I mean, I think the more eyeballs, the better. I'm not super familiar with those. Um, but I I think the online events calendars get a bad rap, but I think they're very useful and they're worth the time it takes to post on them. Okay. Hello, everyone. How was the first session? Which one were you in before this? Artist Toolbox. Okay. Well, welcome to Media Readiness with me, Erin Udell from the Fort Collins, Coloradoan. I wish that I came up with a snappier, cooler title than Media Readiness, but it fits. So as Peggy mentioned when she introduced me earlier, I'm a reporter with the Coloradoan. I cover business and development, but for about 9 years, I was covering arts and entertainment, and that morphed into arts and entertainment and restaurants and a little bit of business. And so I am hoping to just give you guys a little bit of background on what I did as an arts and entertainment reporter for the Coloradoan, and give you some tips that will help you to hopefully break through and differentiate your pitches from a lot of the dozens of others that reporters and publications get. So, all right here. The media landscape in Northern Colorado, the media landscape everywhere has changed, as that's not a secret. The image on the far left is the front page of the ticket section the week I started at the Colorado in early September 2012. So who here remembers the ticket? Yeah, RIP ticket. It was a weekly insert that had arts and entertainment news, events, arts features, everything like that. But as times changed, people started getting their news less and less from print and legacy media and more online. So that's why I included a screenshot from our Facebook page there in the middle. A lot more people are finding news through social media accounts. The Coloradoan has a TikTok now, run by our youngest and most able video reporter, Abby. There you can see her reviewing a bakery. But so we've gone from the ticket to TikTok. And so things have changed, and how you're going to be pitching to media organizations have changed, because we have a lot more limitations than we did, say, 15 or 20 years ago. When that ticket edition ran, the Coloradoan had about a little more than 30 newsroom employees here in Fort Collins. And as of today, that number is 11. So we have a lot less people covering a community that's only grown. So we can't cover everything. We can't cover a lot of the things we used to cover. And so that's where you all come in, and you are kind of more you have to get a little bit more resourceful and a little bit more creative in marketing yourself and spreading your message for your organization, for your art. So the good news about that is that you're kind of in the driver's seat here. You get to be responsible for your message. The bad news is that you are in the driver's seat here, and you have to be responsible for your message. It's not as easy as sending off the same press release to 10 different publications, and hopefully a couple bite and you get some coverage in the paper. Now you really have to tailor your pitches to specific publications in hopes of getting their attention and getting that sought after and oh so little space now in print and online. So, okay. So I don't know if there's any 30 Rock fans in here. There's a clip from when Steve Buscemi was on that show, and he was undercover at a high school. And that's how I feel on TikTok. But you have to kind of meet your readers where they are. And a lot of younger readers are on TikTok. They're using Instagram Reels. So I encourage a lot of people to try to build their social media presence, because that is like a guaranteed way of getting your message out there and having people learn about your organization or what you're doing. And we also have the Coloradoan has an online events calendar. I put dreaded online events calendar in there because a lot of PR professionals that I've talked to don't really love them. They say, that's where events go to die. Like you just send them off into the ether, nothing happens. But I promise that people look at those, and I know that because I am one of them. And as the arts and entertainment reporter, up until last year, until 2 years ago, I used the events calendar to help populate a lot of the events roundups that I put together for the Coloradoan. And there are multiple out there. So the Coloradoan has one on its website. I know North 40 has one that they publish in their e-editions. Style has one. Peggy mentioned Visit Fort Collins has one that people can submit to. And on a lot of those, you can also submit your own photos, and they look very professional online. And it's one of the few kind of guaranteed ways to get eyeballs on your events nowadays. So. Okay. So if you are looking to get that traditional media coverage, I did list out a few steps to start out with. So the first one is to list out all the publications that you think you could possibly get coverage from for your organization or for your event. And the second step is to take a knife to that and really edit it down and identify the best candidates on that list. So maybe there's like a specialized publication that you think would be a better fit for your specific event or what you're doing, what kind of art you're doing or what show you have planned. If you are a local arts organization, your best bet is probably pitching to a local publication. So I wouldn't submit or I wouldn't send a press release for a Fort Collins event to like the Pueblo Chieftain or something, you know. And I get so many of those from like all over the country. And then once you've identified your best candidates for coverage, I would reach out and introduce yourself and try to make it as personalized as a pitch as possible. So a good way to do that is to actually make sure that you're reading the publication that you're pitching to. So, take some time to really catch up on what kind of things they're covering. And then you kind of get to know if there's multiple reporters on staff there, you get to know what each one covers. And then that way, when you're sending a pitch, you can send it to one or two reporters instead of blasting the whole newsroom. And that increases your chance of getting a response if it's a more, like I said, targeted press release, if you're actually using their first name and alluding to past coverage that they've done and why what you're doing right now fits into what they write about. And at the very least, it ups your chance of getting a response. And then you create that kind of dialogue. And then the next time you have an event, it's easier to go to them again and say, hi, remember me? I was hosted that event last month. Well, I'm doing this next month. What's the best way for me to get coverage in your paper? What do you need from me? What do you prefer? A traditional press release, an electronic press kit? Do you like it when photos are attached to press releases? Trying to narrow down exactly like the best format for specific publications will help you in the long run to it'll help your chances at getting a yes eventually, hopefully. So I just wanted to include a few examples of the main kind of stories that I looked for when I was on the arts and entertainment beat. Like I said, we can't provide the same level of coverage that we did when I started at the Coloradoan, but we did have some coverage that, like for example, if you have a very unique event coming up, the photo in the top right is from Debut Children's Theater, and the headline in the far left is for it too. They hosted they put on a really unique radio play during COVID where they had like dividers on stage and social distancing, and it was recorded and broadcast live from the Lincoln Center. It was during COVID, so it was a way for them to keep doing what they did, but during an unprecedented pandemic. And that is like my favorite kind of thing because it was arts-based, but it was also newsy, right? So if you have something like that happening where it's just super unique, something that's not usually done in Fort Collins, definitely pitch that to your local publications. Milestone stories. So the Fort Collins Symphony turned 100 a few years ago, and we did a feature on them. And then I don't know if you guys remember Club Tico turned 100, and a lot of arts organizations use that. So we did a feature on them as well. And then your best bet at getting in the physical paper or getting an event that you're hosting mentioned in the physical paper is through events roundups. That's what I typically did the most of. So free summer music, here's 10 concerts to go to in Fort Collins and Windsor. Are you a local maker? Here's 10 winter makers markets to get your holiday shopping done at. So if you fall into one of those potential lists, I would send that pitch to the reporter or the editor at the publication you're after and tailor the pitch to that specifically. Say, if you're working on any holiday roundups for events, can you add this to your consideration? I think this would be a really good fit for things you've done in years past. So how to get this information to media organizations. As Peggy mentioned earlier, electronic press kits are there any musicians in here? No musicians again. There were none in the last. Oh, yes. Hi. So electronic press kits are most popular among bands and musicians. So as you can see there, they're designed to kind of contain it in one spot, the bio, links to music, photos, links to videos oftentimes, contact information, obviously. And they're meant to kind of host everything in one place and be easily distributed to a really wide audience. So that's why they're good for musicians and artists who are trying to get coverage in a lot of different publications. Then in the middle there, there's kind of a more traditional press release that came through over email for me. And these I would say are best for event coverage. So as you can see there, there's like the basics: who, what, where, when, time, contact, website, stuff like that. The pertinent information right at the top, that's exactly what I like. And then lower in the email, you can see some, like a little bit more of a write-up on it. And Peggy brought this up last session. The less clicking someone has to do to get the information that they need, the better. So if you can, I know it's kind of traditional to like attach like a physical press release PDF to an email, but if you could just put that the basic information in the body of the email, so they're just scrolling into the body of the email. They don't really have to click anything to get the basics, and that way they can read what they need to read, see if it's a good fit, and then act accordingly. And then another option is, like I mentioned before, submitting to online events calendars. And if you have a relationship with, if you've emailed a reporter or an editor before, you could just send them a quick alert, a heads up. Hey, I have this event coming up. Here's a link to it with all the information. If you need anything, here's my contact information. And that's kind of the easiest, most concise way to get that information out. And bonus, you already have the event listing out there, so you're getting word out. Yes. Yeah, so they're kind of like a newer, I mean, not newer, like a little trendier EPKs. I don't get a ton of them because, like I said, they're really popular among musicians specifically, and the Coloradoan doesn't do a lot of music coverage, like, or profiles on bands and individual shows. So it's kind of a fancy
Like
Yeah.
It's almost like a little packaged website, and there are services if you are a musician, you're interested, there's lots of services that provide essentially an EPA profile, like Bandcamp and those where you can actually sort of build that. It's like a little micro, just selling yourself is what I do. It's a website basically. Yeah.
It's like the about page. So,
Yeah, but in this format, you can bundle it and just send it to somebody, right? It's all their assets, what it.
Okay, so you just send them the URL. Pick them there.
Well, you can if you use the service, but some of them, it's actually like a PDF kit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots more, if you're a musician, there's lots of resources out there that you can read more about.
So it's really for musicians, but
It's more utilized by musicians, or maybe, big theater shows.
Maybe it's the traditional newspaper reporter. I mean, I prefer an emailed press release, like the one you see in the middle. But any of these work to get information out to people. So. Okay, so some final tips for you here. So be sure to plan ahead. And this tip is mostly for trying to get events coverage. So speaking specifically from the perspective of Coloradoan reporter, when I covered events as the arts and entertainment reporter, it was almost exclusively preview coverage. So I wasn't going to an event and then writing about it after the fact unless it was like a really newsy event, like a rally or a protest. If I was covering an event outside of a news angle, it was more preview coverage, letting people know this is happening this weekend. Here's where it's going to be. If there's a cost, stuff like that. So because of that, it's really important to get that information to people with enough, to reporters and to editors with enough time. So I usually say like at least a couple weeks to get on the radar. If you're going to try for one of those holiday roundups that I mentioned, I would try even maybe a month because those start getting planned out further in advance. Be prepared. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but if you have photos that you're willing to submit, definitely include those in the press release that you send along, or make sure it's known that those are available to whoever is going to be covering this. And when you do send photos along, send a credit line. So someone doesn't have to come back to you and say, well, who took this photo? Who should I credit for it? And then, sorry. And then just be prepared to answer any follow-up questions that might come back. So if you send out a press release, maybe keep a close eye and make sure that if you do get any follow-up questions that you're ready to hop on those and answer, and not let too much time elapse between that reporter, that editor reaching back out. And then don't get discouraged. That's my last and final tip. I've told plenty of people no to coverage because, again, we're so limited with what we can cover. But you never know when a pitch will break through and when it will be a good fit for the publication that you're speaking to. So what I would encourage you all to do is to just keep reading the publications that you are hoping to get publicity in. And you never know, some things might change. They might introduce a new events listing that they're starting to publish. They might hire someone new or a new reporter who's covering something that's kind of a good fit for what you do at your arts organization. So just keep your finger on the pulse of what these publications are doing. And then that would just help you be ready to send out a really personalized pitch when it's time. So, all right. Any questions? Yes.
Sure, actually some practical questions. I do publicity for local dance troupe,
Okay.
and I do, announcements for upcoming events. We have a regular twice a month series through the dance season, winter dance season. We do classes twice a year. And I'm currently publishing events through Facebook, Nextdoor, and the Loveland Reporter Herald, who has a nice clickable place to submit community events. I've had no success trying to figure out how to get into the Coloradoan
Okay,
and also North Forty News, both of them you mentioned.
yeah.
I have placed phone calls, submitted email inquiries, and
What dance troupe?
hit dead ends.
We're done.
Square dancing,
Okay.
traditional square dancing at
Club
Tico.
Club Tico. Yeah,
And we've been doing it for many decades.
okay.
Have a large regular organization, so open to the public.
Have you submitted to the online calendar with any success?
I can't find the links.
I can show you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, like I said, practical.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
how-
And that was-
It's easy with Reporter Herald, it's.
Not as easy with us.
Colorado.
Understood. And that was one of the first, I think the first question after my presentation during the last session was, someone was holding up their phone. So how do we get to the calendar? It is a little hidden on our website, so I understand. But I can show you after the presentation.
Great, thank
Yeah, let me pull up real quick.
you.
I also just want to offer too, you really put yourself in the place of the reporter or someone who's a reader. Is what you want to have be covered actually interesting, actually newsworthy? Is it something new or is it just kind of what you always do? So that's where you can work on like your pitch or when it is time, because you don't want to every single time you're doing something expect coverage. That's not realistic, but you can have a big thing and work harder at getting that covered. You'll have a little more success. But just remember the person that you're trying to communicate with is a person too doing their job and they might have limited time. So make it easy and make it newsworthy. And that's something that I know I end up having to kind of talk to a lot of artists about is just because it's, or businesses, just because they're open again today doesn't mean